Alrighty, Star Trek the Animated Series, Episode 11, The Terratin Incident. This marks the beginning of a two-episode segment, The Terratin Incident and the Time Trap, which has a bit of a special meaning to me, because long before I even knew the Star Trek the Animated series existed, long before I even watched Star Trek the original series, I was just a little kid, like 10 years old, being excited about Star Trek the Next Generation, and my parents, probably my mom, bought me a Star Trek book at a flea market, which was the novelization of these two episodes, which of course at the time I didn't know. I just thought it was a Star Trek book, like a book taking place in the Star Trek universe. So of course I read the book and I loved it. And it was like I said, these two episodes. First the Terratin incident and then the time trap. Well, in German, of course. But I don't actually remember the German names. But yeah, I read the book twice, I think, and I really loved it. It's like having Star Trek, but having Star Trek at a slow pace, like taking it in at a book speed, word for word. That was really cool. And it's a really cool story, but it's also it reminds me of the issue I have with Star Trek the Animated Series in general, that not just, comparing it to reading it as a book, not just that, but a lot of these episodes for Star Trek the Animated Series were scripts written for the original series for a 1 hour runtime, and they had to just cram it down to half an hour. And in just so many of the animated series episodes, you notice how they are fucking rushing, like, need to get through this episode as fast as possible. There's an alarm. We need to get to the next scene. Faster, 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 faster. And it's like, they're rushing at insane speeds, and nowhere is it more noticeable, like from my standpoint, than, compared to what I read in a book as a kid. When I first watched Star Trek the Animated Series, when I watched it for the first time, I still didn't know that the book I read was episodes of that show. But when the episodes came, I realized, okay, that's where this is from. This was actually not conceived as a Star Trek book, but a novelization of these episodes. That was like a discovery. And then watching the episodes is like high speed. The Concorde is taking off to fly as supersonic over the Atlantic to get through the script as fast as possible. Everybody talks as fast as possible, and there's one scene, another scene, another scene, another scene, another scene. Maximum speed. And that's the issue I've had with the animated series all the time. Because, like I said, so many of the scripts were written to be 1 hour, and they had to do it in half an hour. And, yeah, you can see in my, sunshade covered eyes that something's working up there. I have to compare it to the scripts that were written specifically for this show, like what I previously mentioned in a review I did like years ago, because my channel was going slow for a while, like The Infinite Vulcan, which was written by Walter Koenig, where a giant Spock was on a planet, was one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. It's not like the scripts written specifically for the animated series were exactly great in comparison to the 1 hour scripts that were rushed through. Like that's a subject all for itself. Like what is worse, the 1 hour scripts that were rushed through, or the scripts specifically written for the animated series that were completely stupid? Yeah, you could debate that. Like, let me pretend I'm one of those big YouTube channels and I'm going to say, like, discuss it in the comments. Like, the two people who are watching this, please discuss it in the comments. The two people who watch every video of mine, please discuss it. That's going to be an amazing discussion. All my legion of fans discuss it on the comments. Or what is worse, the rushed 1 hour scripts or the childish scripts written specifically for this? But I digress. And in fact, I digress so much that I forgot where I was. Yeah, quick plot summary. The Enterprise gets to a planet that makes them smaller. They are investigating a colony that vanished, and they get to some kind of energy field that makes them smaller. Just kind of reminds me of how yesterday, I think, I reviewed The Naked Now, and at the same time talked about The Naked Time, where they got to some effect that made them drunk. And now in the animated series, they get to some effect that makes them smaller. That's some groundbreaking science fiction. And Rick Moranis isn't in this, but it actually led to some cool scenes where they use a hairpin to activate the doors. That's pretty neat. And I wish they had the opportunity to do that in a live action show, but I shouldn't have said but. I'd actually be really curious how they would have done that with 1960s special effects. I think, considering that TOS for its time, the effects weren't that bad. Like, we look at it in hindsight, like many people nowadays look at it in hindsight and are like, the effects are so bad. But for the 1960s in television, the effects on TOS were actually pretty well done. For 1960s television, if you compare it to Lost in Space, like the original Lost in Space with Lanier from Babylon 5 and that totally fucking ridiculous looking robot and everything. I think for the 1960s, the special effects in Star Trek TOS, they were pretty good. For the 60s, with a television budget. I think they could have pulled this off, like, build special sets where the crew looks small in comparison to. And on a side note, it's amazing that I'm such a huge fan of Frasier, and I still keep ending sentences on prepositions. But on another side note, I'm just currently like watching Frasier for like the 8th time. I'm just going episode by episode. And it's one of my favorite shows. Next Generation and Frasier were the two shows I learned English with, because they are both the most verbose shows in my time. I once again completely digressed and lost track of where I was. So yeah, they're in that effect. Yeah, catching back on. My brain isn't that bad. They were in that effect that makes everything smaller, and they discovered that the same thing happened to the colony they were looking for, and discovered it, and then they used a very precise phaser to get the colony out of that planet with that effect, because that planet was going to explode or have a lot of volcanoes. Maybe I should rewatch the episodes right before the reviews. I'm just that's kind of escaping me, which is embarrassing considering I also read it as a book as a kid twice. And then they put the colony somewhere else, but the people are still tiny. And that's the plot. And I have to reiterate how great that was as a novel, reading it as a 10-year-old. That was really great. The episode, yeah, it's not as great as reading the novel, but like I said, it had these cool scenes where they are all tiny on the Enterprise and have to deal with that. Like, they have to climb on everything. They can't even push the buttons because they're too small. So they have to use a hairpin to activate the doors. Like, that was all really cool. That was all really, really fun. And like I said, that would have been great in live action if they like had the budget to like build XL sets to put them like in comparison with that. That would have been really cool. But that's like a general thing. I wish the animated series would have been TOS season 4. But that's another can of worms. Partly because of, the episodes written specifically for the animated series. I don't want them to be live action episodes because they're stupid. And again, like I said before, with all due respect to Walter Koenig, especially after he played Bester on Babylon 5, with all due respect that he deserves, the Infinite Vulcan was all fucking kinds of awful. It was, man. As much as I love Chekhov and Bester, I hope Walter Koenig is eternally embarrassed by what he did there. But yeah, the episodes of the animated series that were originally meant to be TOS episodes, I do really wish those would have been TOS episodes, because that really could have worked, and that really would have been cool. And yeah, next up, I'll just continue this train of thought, because as I said, the book I got as a kid also included the time trap, which will be the next episode. And it's the episode I'm going to review next in the animated series. So I'm just going to continue this train of thought, and The Time Trap as a book was, of course, also great. So the next review is basically going to be kind of the same, which shouldn't deter you, because as a discerning viewer, you two people who watch my channel should be attuned to my greatness of everything I say. No, that doesn't sound right. But if I promise the next review is going to be better, that's going to make this review appear in a negative light, and I don't want that. I'm quite fond of this review because it adequately sums up my thoughts of the Terratin incident, which was great as a book, would have been great as a TOS episode, but as a rushed animated series episode, it was okay-ish. It wasn't bad. I liked it, but I liked the book better, and I would have liked it better as a TOS episode. And yeah, that basically sums it up.